everybody, it's Audrey, and this week I've decided to start a very special series focusing specifically on speech and debate. I've been involved in public communication and competitive speech and debate for the last 8 years, 5 of those being competition, and then the rest being coaching the local speech and debate team called Kairos Speech and Debate. I think that learning how to communicate the things that are most important to you, especially in a professional manner, is one of the most important skills anyone can have, no matter what they decide to pursue post-high school. Some of my speech and debate students are interested in things like welding, while others want to be lawyers or international businesswomen. Today specifically, I want to touch on the idea of connecting with audiences. This is by far one of the hardest parts of public speaking once you get over the nerves that come with giving a speech. Connecting with your audience is something that you have to learn how to do, and it takes time. I wasn't good at really relating to my audience until well into my competitive speech and debate career. Hopefully, though, if you have a message that's really important to you and that you want to share with other people, this video is going to be able to give you the tips and tricks that you need to be successful. When you're getting started planning a presentation, whether it be getting ready for a job interview, a speech that you have to give in front of a class, or you have decided to do some kind of presentation, such as one of my dance teachers having to give a presentation to a board to try and get money for her charity. When you're getting ready for these presentations, you need to consider your audience. And you're probably thinking, well, no duh, but you'd be amazed at how many people don't think about who they're talking to. You would speak differently to a group of, say, fellow students than you would to a group of middle-aged parents or even the elderly. So you always need to think about what your audience is going to hear. Are they going to know more than you on the subject? Are they maybe going to be hypercritical of what you're talking about? Do they really need a presentation on how to win a poker game? These are all questions that you have to ask yourself. Always know your audience. And you might be asking, well, how am I supposed to know my audience? What if I'm giving a presentation to a room of strangers? What if it's in the classroom and I don't know my fellow classmates? This is just a presentation I was forced to give because the class requires me to get up in front of everyone and talk about something. Well, you're in luck. It's actually so easy to figure out your audience without knowing everyone that's sitting in the room. When you're considering what your audience needs to hear, you need to consider their top needs and interests. In my math class last semester, we had to give a presentation, and I'm not good at math and also don't particularly enjoy it. So this was really challenging for me. But I chose the topic of women in mathematics and impacted it to my fellow students by talking about how if we celebrated women in mathematics, more young girls would probably be drawn to it and wouldn't give up their love of STEM subjects as so many do early on in junior high. So it's sometimes easier than you think to connect with your audience. Once you've decided that you have a good feel for who your audience is and what they really need to hear about your chosen subject, it's time to ask yourself a few important questions, such as, who am I talking to, which we've already discussed, but then, most importantly, why do they care? If you can't answer that all-important why question in your presentation, you are not going to establish a connection with your audience. Even if you talk about things that your demographic might typically be interested in. Say you're speaking to a room of elderly about how to take advantage of Social Security benefits, which is something that they do at my local library. If you can't give them the why, they're not going to listen to you and they're not going to absorb the information. So make sure you've really boiled your speech down to the absolute heart of the message before you worry about all the tricks that you want to put into it. seen some incredibly gifted speakers that were absolutely unsuccessful in their presentation. And you might be thinking, okay, but if they're a good speaker, how could they be unsuccessful? And the simple fact of the matter is they weren't relatable. They weren't personal. They talked at me instead of talking to me. There was never an emotional connection between themselves and their topic. Like I said, I'm not a particular fan of math, but when I had to give that presentation, I chose something that interested me and then was able to relate it back to myself. I told my fellow classmates, hey, I hate math. I always have. But I think that if someone had told me all of the things women have done for mathematics, I probably would have been a little more interested in learning it, because I would be looking at people that look like me and I would be able to make a connection to them. As soon as you relate your subject to yourself, the audience feels like they know you a little better and they're a lot more willing to listen to you, because it's always nice to feel like you're learning about someone, and because it's unique to you, they're going to be able to remember it instead of just thinking, oh, I heard some talk on math today, but it wasn't personal to the person, so I don't really remember them or the presentation. Lastly, and certainly not least, once you've boiled the message down to its heart and you've connected it to yourself and to your audience, it's time to work on the actual performance of your speech. And this is where confidence comes in. Even if you are the smartest person in the room, if you lack confidence, no one is going to listen to you. No one is going to take you seriously. It's just like the ethos, pathos, and logos modes of persuasion. You're not going to convince anyone that you're credible if you seem like you're really nervous and are just going to stumble through the entire presentation. You might be thinking, okay, but I get super nervous in front of a room of people. The good news is you can fake confidence just by mimicking a few things that every confident person has. I still get so nervous that my legs get shaky when I get up in front of a room of people, and I've been doing public speaking competitively for 8 years. So, a few things to keep in mind are maintaining eye contact with your audience. Don't let your eyes wander aimlessly around the room. Have a focused gaze, and you can stare at their forehead if maintaining real eye contact makes you too nervous. Then, have purposeful movement. I can't tell you how many incredibly gifted people wander randomly in front of the room because they're pacing with nerves, and it completely distracts from the message they're trying to share. So make sure your gestures and all of your movements are with a purpose. Something that people always forget when they're working on public speaking is their facial expressions. If you make weird faces or look incredibly cranky, you're really not going to be making a connection with your audience. So work on having a pleasant and effective face. And finally, vocal power, such as the projection of your voice and the emotional inflection that you put into it. If you can get all of these things into your presentation, you are guaranteed to be a captivating speaker, and now you just need a quality message. When I first started doing public speaking, I was a nervous wreck and probably featured every single nervous habit a person could have. But with lots of practice, I was able to overcome all of the appearances of nerves and now look really confident even if I'm actually nervous. So if you practice making a real connection with your audience and then performing confidently, I can guarantee you that in whatever your next communication endeavor is, you're going to be prepared and you're also going to sound amazing. If you guys like this video, you can visit my blog, follow me on my social media accounts, or subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you!